Yo, what is good, people of YouTube, and welcome back to another podcast, another episode. I got the man, the myth, the legend, Justin Lizama in the building. We are in his office right now in Provo. It's a legacy, and I just wanted to... I think he has an amazing story, and I think there's so much potential in producing a podcast or a show in a finance lane. I read something that finance is becoming as culturally relevant as music and the arts, because kids nowadays have more conversations about money than anything else, and I think, this is the money guy right here. So I just wanted to get his story and then kind of see where we're trying to go with this.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Just starting with your background, something that interested me was you, before going into the finance route, you were in music, so I guess we could start there, or even go before that. You've had a lot of success. Probably put a clip. I saw a clip where Steve Aoki was had a Vine or a TikTok of happy birthday to my tour manager, and then you were in that.
It was probably a cake slap in there somewhere.
Oh yeah. So
yikes.
How did you... I want to know how you got into music. How did you break into that? Because that's such a hard thing to do, but you paved your own path there, right? Or did you have a connection, or how did that start?
So that goes deep. I think my first concert I went to, I was 6 years old, and it was Michael Jackson.
Wow.
So
your dad took you, or?
I went with my mom. My dad bought the tickets.
Nice, okay.
So that kind of entered me into the music world. And then growing up in D.C., I had a lot of bands like Fugazi and Bad Brains, anti-establishment type rock, punk rock, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They got me really interested in music, and just the ecosystems and the communities that those types of bands built was a very interesting and interested part of growing up.
So at 6, you caught a bug. You went to a concert, and you're like, this is something that I want to try and do.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So after there, did you kind of have visions of I'm going to be a rock star? I'm going to actually do music, learn how to play the guitar, play the drums?
Yep,
sing?
so when I was 13, self-taught guitar, played that, kept me stress-free, kept me doing well in school. It was kind of my release. So I learned about release, beyond sports or anything else. I learned hey, if I do this, I can mentally stay happy and stable. Went to school in Colorado at Boulder, got an economics degree with a business minor, not knowing why. I did a year of computer science, almost failed out. It was too antisocial.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, too antisocial, too much lab time, but gained a respect for programmers and C++ and a lot of coding. So that gave me a technological background a little bit.
Right.
Economics still had the math and science part included, but it was more social. So everything was more of a team effort.
Right.
I could watch a film and dissect it economically.
Yeah.
And then from there, got an internship at a concert venue in Boulder, the Fox Theater.
Wow.
Learned how to stage manage, do sound. Got my first tour offer while I was still at Colorado. Didn't take it because I wanted to get my degree first.
Okay.
And then from there, moved to New York City in 2000, right before 9/11.
Wow.
And, worked internships at different studios, was able to work at a studio where David Bowie was finishing his album Heathens. Philip Glass was doing composing. Did a lot of sound at venues around New York. The Blue Note Theater. Ended up production managing the Highline Ballroom. So a lot of music stuff, played in a bunch of bands.
So New York was what started it. Did you apply to internships in New York?
Yes.
And then you got one, and
Yep.
so you moved?
I just went to New York regardless.
Oh.
So all my friends from D.C. and
Because that's the
Virginia,
music hub, right? If you want to do music, New York's kind of a big place to do it, or?
New York's just the capital of the world.
Okay.
So either you've been there, you have a relative there, or you want to go there. New York kind of ties the rest of the world together, or at least it used to. Still kind of does.
So what was the pay for that internship, that first internship that you got?
No pay.
No pay?
No pay.
Wow. But it was you knew that's what you wanted to do?
Oh yeah,
aside from the pay?
I learned from that the entrepreneurial idea of if someone else can do it, you can do it.
Okay.
And that kind of mapped out my commission, 1099, freelance world, knowing that I could dictate and control anything that I wanted to do. I wasn't beholden to an office job or a W-2 environment. So a lot of it was combination. I bartended, I worked freelance, I did a lot of free stuff to learn, however you want to call that.
Yeah.
Built that up, built up grit, resilience.
Through all that.
Didn't sleep much.
And then eventually you started your own production or tour managing company. How did you go from that internship to starting your own thing and managing big names like Marshmello, Steve Aoki, and all that stuff?
So essentially, I started with the Highline Ballroom as a production manager.
Okay.
Got offered a touring job with the Pretenders, an older rock band who were amazing.
Uh-huh.
I got offered a monitor engineer position, so I toured as like the stage sound guy.
Okay.
Did that for about 5 years or so. Intermingled.
How was the pay in that?
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that changed my living, my lifestyle in New York.
So how much were you getting paid like per show or like what was
per day?
Per day?
Yeah.
And do you want to throw a number like how much you were getting paid per day?
I think that one was maybe $500 a day.
$500 a day. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. My job was salary at the club, so that might have been like, I don't know, 60 to 90.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere in there. But it wasn't New York average. It was less than New York average.
Right.
But, between that and doing freelance, it kept me at like probably 6 digits over at that time.
Wow. And how old were you at this time?
New York, I was there from 22 to early 30s. So at that point, I was probably late 20s, confused, trying to figure out life.
Okay. And somewhere in there, you met your wife, right?
Yep. Met my wife in there. Early 30s. I was there for over 12 years. She was there for about 5.
Uh-huh.
And tied that together. So toured with the Pretenders. From there, I had a lot of contacts at Atlantic Records who would give me their mid-major artists like Marine and the Diamonds, Banks, who else? Serena Ryder.
So you set up the tour schedule for them. You booked venues.
No, that was agent stuff. So I did all of the logistics. Okay. So everything from production, lights, sound, video, getting to and from places.
So you had to build a team with that then, right? Like hiring a sound guy, or did you do that yourself?
Yeah, so mix and match. Some people came with their own people. Some I had to structure it from nothing.
Okay.
And then at the dance world, so I think I did a couple of shows with Chromeo. They had their own team. I was filling in. Their manager introduced me to Steve Aoki's manager.
Wow.
That took me into the dance world. So I was basically a one-man gang for that and watched that build that out. And then from Steve went to Banks. I got fried out on that tour after like 3.5 years.
Private jets going all over the world.
3 shows a day. It was nuts. Everyone thinks it's glamorous, but it can be. But
did you get caught up in the party life at all? Were you so focused on the work that you were?
At that level, there's time to party, but you can't do it every day. Being hungover, getting on flights, it's not. Aoki tour is sober. Other dance artists I worked with was Borgor. That's how I met Marshmello, and then the most recent experiences have been with Alan Walker. But you just have to understand when to do what. Yeah. You have to know. You have to have boundaries. You have to know when you can party, when not to party,
right.
When you got to show up and focus. Best of times, worst of times. If everything was going great, I could take responsibility for it. If one thing goes wrong, all eyes on me.
So it was so stressful, more so than anything else.
I'd say on big, massive festival shows, the only thing that would be tougher would be being a bomb diffuser. Having people yell at you, you're sweating, you're trying to fix something, maybe it's not even your responsibility in the first place, someone messed up, the sequence of command or the chain of command was off, and just trying to, you just want, the show must go on. So it was instant problem solving. You have to be a solutionist.
What was like a horror story that you have where you were like, I'm done, this is on me, like I messed up, like.
The 2 ones that come to mind were Aoki and I were in, I want to say Germany or Belgium somewhere early on, and he had a European manager named Michael Thien who was awesome, who also knew how to push buttons and drive someone insane. But we had a video connection. At that point, it was just me and maybe a photographer and Steve, and I had to set up everything. So during the day, I set everything up. It was great. Or it was either that or we just flew in and I had to figure everything out within 15 minutes of showing up to the festival, landing, showing up to the festival, building everything out, all on the fly.
Jeez.
So the video connection wasn't working. Michael's yelling at me, I'm sweating.
Oh
Steve's
my
yelling
gosh.
at me, I'm sweating.
Oh my gosh.
Everything, there's like 50,000 people out in the crowd. I'm trying to figure out video. Like, I know sound inside and out. I'm okay on lighting. Video at that point was still brand new, so nothing hand shook properly. So you would have to have like so many different tools, or every venue had a different setup, whether it was like optical or digital.
Oh my gosh.
If people that understand this, the environment can probably relate to it, but video was still brand new. It was like 2011, 2012. It was just wasn't stabilized, and there wasn't a consistent.
Like the screens on the side of the stage, trying to get those to work.
Yeah, because I'm trying to send a signal from his laptop to the front of house where the video controller is, so they can put that up on the screen. So there's a lot of variables.
Yeah.
And I think we just winged it. He ended up just going on 15 minutes late. The other major one was probably with Marshmello, right at the end of my tenure there. It was just about a year. I just had a string of shows that were probably like 3 or 4 just off. Like nothing maybe I could have advanced it better. Maybe there was better communication that could have been involved, but like something was broken on pyro. Something was broken on fireworks. Something just wasn't enough things where I sat in a bathtub in my hotel in London was like, that was probably my last show.
Oh no!
Yeah, just because of just the randomness of events. Because just like anything else, you can solve a problem, or if one thing happens, no big deal. But if you have multiple days in a row, people just start to lose confidence. And like music is such a psychological game. If someone can't go on stage, or if management looks at you and just like, hey, we've had too many mistakes, whether they're big or small, just like this industry now, I could take people to lunch every day. I can do the nicest things for people, and they'll still dwell on that one day that something wasn't working. So people, whenever something's not working, that people always gravitate towards that versus the 20 positive things. So, I sat in my tub and I realized, I'm like, I'd be surprised if I'm here.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's just like,
like a breakup. Like you're like, this is about to, the relationship's ending kind of thing.
But nobody wants to fail. I never want to fail.
Yeah.
You learn from it, and it's like, okay, well, how much do people have your back? How much do people trust you? What are they willing to go through with you?
Do you feel like you built solid friendships with these people first and foremost, or was it mostly business?
50-50. It just depends on who. Like some people I still stay in touch with. Some people reach out. Some people check in. I check in. There's so many people you work with through the whole sequence. It's hard to. Yeah. Because you might spend 6 months with one person and then you move on to the next group or you move on to the next team. But you learn a lot. Like the DNA of that whole process sticks with you. Like you remember,
that shapes who you end up becoming, right? In business and in life, like.
Oh yeah, I mean every individual person, their stresses, their ups and downs, the travel, everything from doing a show in Nepal to like traveling China, doing shows in Russia, random places. I mean, we've literally gone almost everywhere. Short of Antarctica.
When you were doing that, did you see it as a long-term thing? Like, did you have visions of, I'm going to be touring, I'm going to be on flights, I can keep doing this for the foreseeable future? Or was it, in your mind, did you know, like, this is going to come to an end, I got to raise my family, I got to raise kids, like...
I knew that there was always something bigger and better. I looked at guys touring into their 60s, and that wasn't me. It's just not... It just didn't make sense. Like, the reward versus the effort is two different things. And then when you're building out a company in that industry, it's a manpower company, right? You're only as good as the teams that you build. So even some of my most trusted colleagues who I knew were amazing sound engineers or tour personnel, they would get fired from jobs just for something.
Jeez.
Maybe they partied too much, maybe they failed at something, maybe they couldn't keep the trust or just didn't rub well or jive well personality wise. So then I started to realize, okay, well, again, the risk versus return, the margin of that just didn't make sense. So even if I had a 100-person team and I was sending everybody out on tours, I was only taking a small margin because I still had to pay them.
Right.
Because they know what the rates are.
Yeah.
And, that was transparent. And so sometimes I'd put people on salary and just say, hey, I'm going to keep you busy all year. Like, what do you want, the risk of not working, or do you want the stability of a salary? But knowing that... you're only as good as the people you have, that made me start to think. And, being, in the economics, with the economics background, the conversation is always the easiest way to make money is with money.
Yeah.
Like dollars will work harder than people.
100%.
And it's passive. So you put the money out there and hopefully that money, that army of money brings back further money.
So that goes into the next thing. When did you start learning about investing in the world of like Bitcoin and getting into that, and like how did you start pivoting that? And did it start in music? Were you like, oh, all these people are...
No. I started in college. I had a roommate who was a math biochem double major.
Okay.
Like brilliant guy, not the most social, but he was my roommate, amazing drummer, but just wasn't the most social guy, but like mathematically and scientifically just knew his stuff. And I think one of the first conversations I ever had was shorting and margins. And
in college.
In college.
With this guy. Okay.
Yeah, he was doing it already, and he showed me how to do it, and I started to dabble.
Was it big numbers, or was it playing with a little bit of...
I mean, I think we were like 10, 20, 30K.
Okay.
Here and there. Won, lost, you just kind of... You didn't know. I mean, at that point, it was like, here's a stock ticker.
You had some money to lose,
yeah.
or like learn and play around with.
Yeah, I mean, I made it work.
Okay.
But, at that point, people would say, hey, here's a stock ticker that I like, and you would do it. I didn't know about research. I didn't know about fundamentals. And then, my roommate at that point was like, hey, I have an E-Trade account or something where I put X amount in, you get a margin credit, you can short or you can buy. That was my entry point.
Options. You got right into options.
It wasn't options, it was just trading.
Okay.
And, didn't really know what the difference between investing or trading was.
Yeah.
One's long-term, one's swing or short-term.
Yeah.
And then had, being in New York, even my buddies from high school that were in New York were all working at Citibank, Chase, Goldman, bigger companies. Some were just investment bankers, some were interest derivative, traders. Very mixed results and success. Some still do it, some don't. Some do it still business-wise, some do it independently, but a good sample size. And always tracked them, always watched them. I had such a good time in music and was so committed to it, I didn't care. I mean, this was my ship, I was going to sail it or sink it.
So you weren't trading or doing any stock stuff?
No.
Anything.
I mean, at that point, it was like just live and breathe music. Everything I invested in, like I'd buy studio gear. I built a small demo studio that made a little bit of money.
That makes sense.
I spent money on touring. I funded everything. With my bands, like I contributed financially a lot to that.
So did you have a financial guy that was helping you sort through all this different stuff? And
nobody.
You did all this on your own.
Yeah.
You self-taught yourself how to do all of this.
Yeah, and how to just survive on the road, taking a crappy van out into the world and just trying to play shows to, sometimes it'd be like one person, sometimes it'd be a few hundred. Had a couple of good bands in New York that actually played to people, so that was exciting. I mean, it was a balance of reality and dreaming.
Wow. But eventually you got screwed over in taxes, right? Because I remember you were telling me about how one day you found a guy in New York that was by Wall Street.
Yep. So I had an accountant or a CPA. His address was 11 Broadway. Me and my partner were set up as a limited partnership at that time, doing a lot of touring, sending a lot of people on tours. And this is where I was learning about margin in terms of income and revenue. Mm-hmm. So we would generate about $1 million or so plus a year on touring, but our margin was only about 10%. So there was $900K in expenses a year on top of it.
Wow.
But the CPA filed for us, and we just signed off on it. I didn't know. And this is one of my reasons why I got into this field now. But
sense,
it was really frustrating because it was just an introduction that turned into a guy that we thought knew what he was doing. He got raided by the feds. It's I can give you a link to it. I found articles eventually. So I got audited for 2009, 10, 11, and 12.
Wow.
So that turned out to be about $250K in taxes.
So annoying and painful and time consuming.
Yeah, but that just showed me that it doesn't matter if someone's licensed or a professional, they still have to have your best interests involved. And at the end of the day, they still have a disclaimer where if you sign off on it, it's still your responsibility. So with him, he got picked up by the feds. All of his corporate clients who were probably paying quarterly taxes, they were paying ahead, he had power of attorney for, somehow they all got off. All of his creative accounts, people that we didn't know that we should be paying quarterly or doing anything beyond just paying yearly taxes, maybe because how we were structured, we all got audited and pegged, and nobody showed up for us in court. So we just started getting these bills from the IRS, $40,000, $50,000,
Jeez.
Pay this. So long story short, I ended up finding some other attorneys to handle it, I think it was like 5 or 6 years later it finally settled. But what happened was it opened up state audit and federal audit. So I had to pay about $40K in state and about $180 in federal.
Straight out of your savings, you got to...
Just cash go, yeah.
Dang. So so you were in the hot tub backtracking, and you're like, I messed up these last shows with Marshmello. Was that the most recent?
I was in my bathtub just taking a bath because I was tired. It was probably like the second show of the day or something too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell. I can tell. I'm intuitive. I know. I've seen it with music too, where our audio engineers, especially monitor engineers, because they work with the band so closely.
Yeah.
If the band doesn't trust them on stage and the band can't perform comfortably, you're just in the hot seat. So I'd been in that position before. I never got let go because of sound.
Right.
But this was just like, man, one bad show, okay, cool. 2 bad shows, still fixable. Once you hit 3, and it might not even been that bad. It might have just been like a couple of things that people were like, what happened here,
Yeah.
And it might have been in my control. I don't know.
So the last tour you did was with Marshmello?
Alan Walker.
Alan Walker.
Yeah.
And then that was the last tour that you've ever done?
The last like retainer, permanent fixture, Marshmello, and Alan I'll fill in with. So before COVID, I did like China. I was in Wuhan right before COVID with Alan, but we did India, China, and a bunch of dates around the world.
So you still have your hand in it. You still have that touring.
Yeah, I'm happy to fill in if people reach out. I have an agency out of Michigan that does bookings for smaller artists. I still have a few artists that I manage, but I'd say I have a foot in. But
okay.
So
from New York,
less stressful though.
Yeah, from New York you came to Utah. That was the next move, right? New York to Utah.
Yeah, we did New York. Went to DC for 2 years.
DC, okay.
Had my daughter there. Still was doing a lot of music, so just needed an airport. Looked at moving back to Colorado because I didn't want my kids growing up on balconies. So yeah. Colorado isn't as convenient as Utah, and I'd been coming to Utah since I was about 16. So I came to visit in-laws. They were here. They moved out a year before, and just saw so much opportunity, and no one really lived here at that point. I mean, no one really still lives here. It's a lot busier in the last 5 years, but, built a house, settled, got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to travel anymore. I want to snowboard, ride my bike, hang out with the
fam. Did you bounce around different career paths when you first moved to Utah, or even in DC? Were you playing different things, or it was just music?
It was always music, and then I got to a point where with my clients, I'm like, how can I benefit them? If I'm not going to tour, I'm not networking that way, what can I do? Okay. So my 3 choices were go to law school, because I already did a lot of contract stuff with shows and just in general.
I can see you as a lawyer.
Yeah, but that takes money, time, and education, and I don't want to give up family time for that. Okay. Second option was go resume coding, like go back to that coding world, which I did a year of. I did. It's just the time element at that time in my life just didn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
But here, with coding, you could do deep learning, you can do machine learning, things that will help people with marketing. As much as I hate Instagram and all of the social media stuff, there's a purpose for it. And at that side, if I went into coding, I could develop back-end stuff, or at least be aware of it and build teams to do that for artists, and that would be helpful. Because everyone's like, how do I get how many followers on Facebook or Instagram? How do I get my music out there? I'm like, write a hit. I don't know. I mean, it's usually, if you write a hit and you have a good, persona, a lot of it's just luck. Third option, which I settled on, was, finance and insurance world, because I could work and learn at the same time.
Yeah.
And I still have free. There was some flexibility there. You have to make your own flexibility, but there was flexibility to do what I want. And I was like, an advisory just made sense. I've been around money. I've seen people go from no money to a lot of money. I've seen vice versa. I've been around deals. I've seen people negotiate. I mean, I also read a lot. A lot.
And you still do probably, right? You just finished your master's.
Just finished my master's for personal financial planning, and just started reading some other books outside of finance.
And so now, what's the vision from here on out? What are you trying to accomplish? Building a team, building this up?
Building the team, doing the personal and business consulting. I find I'm adept at that, and helping people with financial stability and financial equality has been a key. I think the U.S. is a mess with that.
Yeah.
So even if people don't end up working with me, everything's based on education. So if I'm able to show them something that makes their life or business better that they just never seen before, I'm happy to do it. So it really comes down to like asset protection, tax forecasting, investment planning is fine. I mean, it's the easiest part. I mean, that's why so many people like some of the like the Mick pop-up finance places do well, because it's easy to just set someone on a path and go. But I like to dig a little bit deeper and customize those plans.
So you would say everyone should be financially literate at some point, right? Like how do you preach that, or how do you teach that to people that, because money's so important, I feel like everyone should have some sort of understanding of it, but they don't teach that.
Just spending time. I mean, you go out and you meet people and you network, you get referrals. I think the more time I spend with people as clients, it's just a learning process. Like everything, I think if your advisor or your planner isn't educating you and they're dictating to you, that's a problem. I think intent is a big issue. So if their intent is to help, fantastic. And that just takes time. There's no one's going to solve a problem in a 1 hour visit. If you're meeting with people weekly, quarterly, that relationship grows and it gives you the opportunity to build those comprehensive plans. And a lot of investment advisors don't do comprehensive planning. They're not looking at retirement, saving for school. They're just looking at how much money can I make you in the market, which I think is a flawed concept. So looking at it from a macro perspective, from a top down, building that out, I feel is a key element to the whole process.
Awesome, that was well said. And what do you see like for the future, just like the U.S. and like, what is your take on all that stuff? Because people love hearing different people's opinions, and that's where people get personalities. Of like Kathy Wood believes in hyper growth stocks, and that has a whole hype movement. Like where?
I think it's wild. I mean, I think no matter what, it all comes down to allocation. I think crypto will have its place.
You're big on diversification then, right?
Because I'm back into gold now.
Yeah.
I don't think gold's going to be better than crypto or vice versa. It's just looking...
A safe play kind of thing.
Not even a safe play. I mean, I'll look at technical analysis. I'll do my own. I have a couple sites that I follow that I find are awesome. So it gives me more of a back-end perspective. I got colleagues in the industry that are macro, gurus. They're like, oh, this is what's happening. Or who knows, maybe I get a letter from Credit Suisse or JP Morgan saying this is what we're doing. Or even looking at the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Here's how Russia can stay afloat with China helping. Here's how the U.S. role and the dollar plays into all of this. Like, what is liquidity? Like, it's a dynamic thing where you have so many, words and theories and concepts thrown at you. Sometimes you take all of that at once and you're just getting, bombarded by these things. And then you take each concept and individually learn them. It's all just time, right? Like, I don't know everything. There's people that know infinitely more than me, but I know some of those niche spaces. And then when it comes to allocation, I look at it as, okay, what if I put you in a high-performing fund, 90% of your assets allocated to that, and then I use 10% crypto. Let's say crypto goes to zero. Hopefully that high-performing fund still gets you 10, 15% that year. But if that 10% of your allocated money in crypto does what I think it's going to do, or most people, that could double your whole portfolio. Yeah. So there's like those equations that I have to look at as a risk manager. So at the end of the day, it all becomes risk management.
Do you see Bitcoin going to $1 million per coin?
I mean, not tomorrow.
Yeah, but eventually that's kind of, it makes sense that would be the...
I look at it in 4-year increments at Bitcoin halving. Whenever it halves, that's where I'll make adjustments. But right now, I'll still integrate that into, all of a lot of the portfolios that I'm building.
Our lunch is here.
Hey, thank you.
You ever see those mukbang videos?
What's that?
You've never seen those?
Mukbang?
Yeah.
Sounds
it's
like a
people, viral videos of people just eating in front of a camera. Millions of views.
Have you ever seen Breadface blog?
No, what's that?
It's that chick that smashes her face in the bread.
No.
Yes, I'll find those.
It's crazy to see like the different things that go viral now. Like anything can go viral, and that's why I'm like, you could be a financial guy, like, if that's what... I mean, and it also adds to the lane of, like, outreach, right? Like, people are calling Dave Ramsey for advice every day on his show. People should be calling Justin and Utah, right? Like, this is a niche of, like, this is where we're at. There's so many people that need help.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's a conversation. And even the Dave Ramsey stuff, I mean, there's some good to take away from it.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan, but, I always try to find the positive.
Well, yeah, that's I think that'll wrap up our podcast episode, and I have a video of Justin doing a YFB presentation that I can post as well and start a YouTube channel there. But I appreciate you doing this, and think we'll have a lot more of these coming. Justin said he'll allocate a budget, maybe up this studio and have like a better setup, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, as long as Charles shows up to work.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you. Yeah, got what you needed?
Yep, that's good.
It's fun. I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, and there's like, and like you said, we could bring guests. Like this table setup was kind of like a little.
That was fun. Call it a tiny office.
Yeah. get Gabby on, right? Have her talk. That'd be pretty fun.
Well, like you just, I mean, everybody, like, what is you? It's basically, you know, everyone's feelings, right? Everyone has different feelings.
Yeah.
How do you discuss it? And then once you.
This could be therapy for Creighton.
Yeah.
Right? You just come on and talk it out, like.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool.